speaking of trash, we have some trash news to talk about today.
Yeah.
Some really crappy things happened this week.
Yeah.
Including the news that we're just going to get right off our chests right now because it is horrific stuff that they're thinking about bringing into Amazon's Lord of the Rings show. They're talking about bringing nudity into Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, man.
What?
Well, boobies sell, you know?
Well, you know, I had a little bit of hope for the series, but after they announced that, they were like, you know what, we're not even going to try to have our own identity as a show or anything. We're just going to, you know, leech off of the legacy of Game of Thrones and The Witcher, and we're just going to throw boobs in our show because that's what we do apparently nowadays. Well, that's what all fantasy shows have to do nowadays, apparently, because they can't just rely on a good story. They can't just rely on actually sticking to the legacy of Tolkien's works. They have to rely on boobs.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that really says anything good about the show, because if they're to the point where they are trying to market that type of stuff to get people to watch it, that's not really good. That's not a good thing. That's my initial thoughts about it, though. What are your guys' thoughts about it?
I'm probably gonna have the hottest take here, so I don't know if Mike wants to go first.
No, please, Ben. By all means, give us your hot take. I want to hear this.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how much of a thing it's actually going to be in the show. If you read the articles, a lot of it sounds like extra work. I don't know if that's just going to be like a scene in the background, but I don't think that's going to take away from the identity of the show. I think that we still need to wait and see if the story is actually going to be good. I mean, there's a difference between
never been anything like that in any.
I'm not saying it makes sense in the story or in the show. I'm not saying that it makes sense. I'm just saying that I don't know if it's going to be so big of a part that it's going to take away from everything else in the show. Like, we can't necessarily hate the show because
when you think Tolkien.
No, not at all.
Exactly.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't think it belongs necessarily. However,
it doesn't belong.
No, but if it's in the show for 2 seconds, am I going to hate the show because of that? No, not at all.
If it's only in the show for 2 seconds, then why are they making such a big deal with marketing that?
They didn't market anything. There was an article that said that they hired extras. I don't see how that's marketing. There was no marketing.
What about the fact that they hired intimacy directors to direct?
Exactly.
That was a report. Do we know if any of this stuff is actually true? No.
I mean, it's coming from reliable sources.
I mean,
so the fact is, like, this show has been, like, since it was announced, like, nothing but mired in, like, controversy.
Yeah.
And then being like, oh, yeah, we made our own characters, and oh, we did this, we did that, and oh, reports that we fired our entire writing staff, reports that, Tolkien estate is, like, angry with us about what we've been doing. All of that stuff, like, kind of builds to, like, an idea of, like, maybe this show is kind of a train wreck and they just don't want us to realize it. The fact is that even if you're having a discussion, even if there's any reports that they're going to put nudity in the show, does lend itself to the fact that a lot of, like, major studios today don't have confidence in their writing and try to go the route of Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones, the books at least, like, had a lot of nudity and sex and stuff in them. So you go, okay, well, obviously we're going to adapt that stuff because we know it sells. Right. But, like,
well, I mean, in Game of Thrones, that actually was in the content that they were basing it off of. So it makes more sense than this does. And like I said, I'm not saying this makes sense. I'm just saying that I am for giving a show a shot. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I'm never going to.
Well, you're wrong.
Well, that's your opinion, but I'm still gonna watch the show. Probably, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm gonna watch it. If it's not something that I like, then I'm not gonna watch it.
So you're gonna watch it because they have boobs in it?
No, Mike, I'm watching it because it's Lord of the Rings. That's pretty much the only reason that would ever draw me to this.
Is it Lord of the Rings though?
That's what I'm saying. Is it Lord of the Rings if it has boobies in it? That's what we keep trying to say.
Oh, okay.
If you're watching it because it's Lord of the Rings, but it has boobies.
You're saying that people don't have boobs in Lord of the Rings?
No one has boobs in Lord of the Rings. No one.
No one. Absolutely no one. I can't think of a single character in Lord of the Rings that has boobs.
Mention one time that they talk about boobs in Lord of the Rings.
Never once.
Because it doesn't. They don't.
Because
exist.
boobs don't exist.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Females don't exist. In Lord of the Rings.
Well, no, that's not true.
Okay,
if you have read or listened to anything Lord of the Rings,
that was a joke.
Obviously Ben doesn't know what Lord of the Rings
or the Silmarillion. I mean, the Silmarillion has some excellent, really powerful female characters in there that are very dominant in that shit.
Right, and I think
Ben, you don't know your Lord of the Rings. It's okay.
I think they shouldn't have to rely on nudity to bring her.
No, listen, it's too late.
Or to make female characters attractive, which has never been a good reason to throw in nudity. I mean, because female characters are attractive without the over sexualization.
And you don't know your Lord of the Rings.
I mean, I do, but I'm trying to be a counterpoint here. I'm not trying to throw anything off. It's more of just bringing up questions like, will you support the show?
Look,
will you watch the show and actually see if it's good for yourself? Because you know how much I hate prejudging stuff that I don't watch or play or whatever it is.
I don't know that.
Really, you hate that, Ben?
I hate what?
You hate not giving your opinions about things before they come out and stuff?
For the most part, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, for the most part. Unless it's like something really crazy, then I'll try to jump on the bandwagon a little bit just for the discussion.
Okay.
I mean, we literally talked about Cold War zombies for like an entire show last week before it even came.
Oh no, I meant like negative opinion, like saying something's trash.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not saying Cold War zombies is trash.
Negative opinions. Okay.
Yes. If I'm hyped about something, I'll give my opinion on it. Sure.
No one wants the show to be better, like the greatest show ever, more than me. Like, I am so excited for this, and I'm not excited for the show. I was excited about the idea.
I was like, you're not excited.
I was excited about the idea when they first announced it and stuff, but at this point, I don't know. Like, that was such a big red flag to me when they announced that. I mean, that's just one of the many red flags that they have kind of thrown our way and stuff.
That's the only thing I've seen that has come off as a red flag from the stuff I've seen from the show. Other than that, I haven't been.
What I've heard, I mean, just the stuff about like them potentially firing their writing staff and
there's been a lot of production issues.
Yeah, I haven't really delved into the deeper news, so I can't say that I'm coming from an educated spot when it comes to that. But this is literally the first thing I've heard, and that's because it was shared by someone.
Yep.
So
totally. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of give a little bit of insight into this whole story and stuff. This is coming from the OneRing.net and stuff. Tolkien fan site, the OneRing.net. It has gotten a hold of numerous casting calls that imply that Amazon's show could follow in Game of Thrones' footsteps when it comes to nudity. One casting call from Kiwi agency BGT over in New Zealand seeks talent for background roles, specifying that they should be comfortable with partial or full nudity. Additionally, the series has brought on intimacy coordinator Jennifer Ward Leland, which obviously implies that there will be intimate scenes for her to coordinate. All signs point to sex and nudity in the upcoming fantasy series, and Lord of the Rings fans are already calling the decision a mistake. So, and then just in this article here, they give a lot of examples of what people are saying about the show and about this decision. And for the most part, people aren't very, very happy about this,
which is understandable because a lot of the stuff is none of the stuff is in Tolkien's writing. So
no.
This
is just kind of another one of those dominoes that we've been seeing of where they're straying from the spirit of Tolkien, right, with a lot of the decisions that they're making for the show. And
I hope, my hope for the show is that they do manage to capture Tolkien's spirit in some form or fashion throughout the show. But like I said, I don't know if they will or not. And I mean, I don't know how far in production they are on this show. I don't know if they maybe will hear fan outrage and not do this stuff, because there's a very good chance that could happen too. It really just depends, I think, on how much the studios care about what the fans think. I think at the end of the day, it's like, because we've seen fan opinions sway studios to do different things, especially when they're as passionate as like Tolkien fans are, I think. So there's a good chance that this stuff may never even come to see the light of day because people are upset about it. So I mean, if they fired writers and are doing rewrites and stuff, they could just completely write stuff out that they originally had written in. So I guess it's like something that, yes, it's frustrating, but there is a good chance, since we're so far along, or we're not far along enough in production yet, that I think that there's a good chance that some of that stuff could get overwritten. And that's my hope. I hope that a lot of the stuff that's un-Tolkien gets taken out and they try to do the best they can for the fans, because I would assume that's what people want to do with a project that is based off of Tolkien's works, or inspired, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you never know.
The Hobbit would like to disagree with you.
Well, we don't talk about the Hobbit, Mike.
Yeah, that's fair. We really don't.
The Hobbit was the biggest problem with the Hobbit was it was a cash grab. I mean, that was all for money. Yeah. And when money's involved, a lot of the time things go downhill. Like, I think a really good example of an admiration of someone's previous project and doing a very good job with a sequel, or whatever you want to call it, was Denis Villeneuve with Blade Runner 2049. It was incredibly respectful of the original. It didn't feel like a cash grab. It just felt like its own idea. It obviously wasn't a cash grab because nobody supported it, which is unfortunate. But that's a good example of something that The Hobbit did not do, which was just awful.
Yeah. I mean, and you'd think that they would be a little bit concerned about the money aspect of the show, because this show has literally put in $1.5 billion.
Which is a lot of money.
Which is a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so if we're talking about like passionate fan bases, like, you know, obviously we think of fan bases like Star Wars, but Lord of the Rings has an insanely passionate fan base.
Right. Which is what makes me think that there's a good chance that they might change some of the stuff around, considering how low they are in production. But like I said, I honestly don't know.
I mean, you'd think that, but they kind of broke the fan base when it came to Star Wars too. So it's
the state of Star Trek right now too. I mean, like,
I don't know much about what's going on with Star Trek.
I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and one of the things I've always been frustrated about with like the new stuff is a lot of it feels like they took J.J. Abrams' style of like edgy, loud, humorous, but like, yeah, I don't know, it's all edgy and they swear a lot, and it's
I don't know.
Look how like
JJ Star Trek.
Well, you know,
of course,
it's okay to like bad things too, Ben.
Oh, you know.
Yeah,
I just heard a wise man say it's okay to like bad things.
I do know that a lot of like classic Star Trek fans are not happy with the new stuff. So
yeah,
like Discovery, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Discovery. Picard,
I don't know Picard. I didn't
Picard
see
was an absolute train wreck to me personally. I feel like
I've heard mixed stuff on Picard. I've heard some people hated it. I didn't some like people loved it.
My wife watched it, and I watched like 5 episodes of it, and was like, "This is terrible."
Are you a pretty big fan of the original Star Trek, like Patrick Stewart and
The Next Generation? That's not the original Star Trek.
Or what Next Generation with whatever has what's his face is
what's his face?
Yeah, what's his?
Please enlighten me, Ben. Ben doesn't know Star Wars.
I don't know my I don't know my Star Trek. I'm gonna be entirely honest with you. I don't know my Star Trek. It's not something I've been super.
I'm a fan of all of it. I mean, the original series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, all of it. But I like J.J. Abrams' like first movie. I thought it was like a fun reboot to Star Trek, but not a fan of the lens flares, not a fan of all of that. And they kind of wanted to go in that direction with the new shows. And then we're like, oh no, this is how Star Trek has always been. And it's like, no, it's not really. And that's kind of how I feel like studios are approaching things lately with like the reboots to franchises. Are like, oh no, this is how it's always been. Isn't this cool? And we've seen, I mean, so many reboots of different franchises from the past. I mean, we've seen, you know, we watched Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, and Jurassic World was okay, but like you could tell it was an obvious cash grab, and then the next movie was even worse. And you know, I mean, there's just a lot of like, let's put our own spin on it instead of actually trying to respect the original material and then write our own new things. And I think that's somewhat of what I'm worried about with the new Lord of the Rings, is that they're like, oh yeah, this is Lord of the Rings, isn't it cool? But like, this is our take on Lord of the Rings,
and that's understandable. And I think that's a pretty valid concern too, because obviously people wanted to be like Lord of the Rings. But
yeah, I mean, if Amazon was that desperate to create some sort of fantasy world, why don't they just like
create an
be original for once and create their own? Of course, they want the name. That's kind of the whole point of it.
Well, I mean, it's not that Amazon hasn't had original content. I mean, there's a lot of original content on Amazon.
Well, yeah, a lot of the original shows are incredible, but
I'm just saying that like when it comes to like these fantasy blockbuster shows, no one creates like an original fantasy show. It's always like
it has to be already been established,
right? And
a lot of the time when people create
crap.
And a lot of people when people create the shows, they want it to be like the next Game of Thrones, or they want it to be the next this, and
which works for things like Witcher, like The Witcher.
Right.
The Witcher is, it has a lot of those more adult type of themes, like
it does. And but The Witcher's always been adult fantasy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But Lord of the Rings is not. I mean, like Lord of the Rings is just that's not where the focus is on Lord of the Rings. It's completely different. Completely different.
No, Tolkien wrote for. I mean, it's not that he didn't write for adults. He absolutely did, but it was a different type of writing and style of writing.
Yeah, exactly.
And storytelling in general. So.
Yeah, and I think that J.R.R. Tolkien would be appalled if he was alive and saw that they were putting nudity, sex, that type of stuff in a show based off of his works.
Right.
So yeah. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see as things continue to progress and stuff. We'll definitely keep an eye on things when it comes to that. But as it stands right now, I am not excited for Lord of the Rings, the show. And until things start changing with that, well, that's where I stand with that. So very disappointed because when they first announced it, I was excited because Amazon, for the most part, like they do a really good job with their shows.
Oh, absolutely.
So
they do a fantastic job.
And just to see them going down this path with Lord of the Rings just is really disappointing.